Hey YouTube, it's Sunday. I'm going to do a little bit of a kind of a out and back drive, Costco run basically. It's going to be uncut, so you know, if you don't like long straight and narrows where okay, I've got this unprotected left and here I am, it looks like it's going to go right again. I'm going to disengage if it does that, just because I need to go left here. I'm leaning way forward to get a view here. I've got a good gap here. It should go for it. Yep, it's open. It should go for it. See what it does. Please go straight. Okay, I needed to go left here. It looks like it was going right. Not sure why. We've got previous videos on that if you're interested to know why it's doing that there at that unprotected left. It was wide open. And it was actually in a position it could see when it decided to continue to go right there. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, back. So we're going to Costco and back. It's got a little bit of a suburban highway like this. It's got a little bit of interstate transition, and then back to city streets. I'm not going to cut this or speed it up. So if you want to watch it 2 or 4 times during the straight spots, that's fine. And I'll just comment as we go. We put out 3 videos yesterday. Lots of unprotected turns, both with forward-facing traffic and unobstructed left-hand facing traffic, with some mixed results if you're interested in watching that. And then there was a good side-by-side comparison of version 9 versus version 9.1 to Memorial Park that I released yesterday too. So we've got about 4 miles to the turn off of the interstate. At some point it'll be interesting to see if it camps out in this left lane the whole time, or if it joins into the middle lane, or perhaps even the right lane, as I would expect a human driver would do, to not camp out in the left lane all the way down there. But we'll see what happens. It's one of our busier intersections here. It's got 3 lanes every direction. It's interesting to watch how some of these cars disappear and then reappear, which kind of brings up that persistence question that kind of comes up every once in a while. Alright, there's a lane change there. It says to follow route. So it didn't say to get out of the passing lane, it just said to follow route. And it's going all the way over to the right. Okay, that's fine. This is the eventual lane we need to take in 3 miles. So if it told me it was changing lanes for the route, then I would expect it to stay here unless some other, you know, passing for slower traffic or something like that pops up. We'll see what happens. Somebody asked me the other day if FSD City Streets uses the brake or regen. I'd never really focused on it before, but those of you that are curious, up here you know, in this little bar. When it goes green, that's regen braking. And I think you'll see it here. We got a stoplight coming up ahead. I'm sure it'll brake a little bit. You'll see the regen kicking in. Oh, we went green. And the other thing, I'll just clarify because it's generated a lot of questions. This chill mode down here, I prefer to drive in chill mode just for my own smoothness and a little bit of battery conservation. I don't do many launches or things like that, so that's my preferred setting. But I've talked a lot about my unobstructed left-hand turns having like an acceleration problem. My chill mode setting, Tesla has told me, the early access team has responded to my question saying that the chill mode does not impact the acceleration available to FSD. This is purely a user setting to moderate my input into the accelerator. So that is not a factor in the way FSD behaves. Here's a little bit of regen that just showed up, just for an example. So if the car stays in this slower lane this whole time, which it looks like it's on its way to doing, I think that was a nice job getting out of that passing lane and coming all the way over to the right, which is a great behavior. Others have already given some feedback on the testing team that the lane changes haven't been great for them, so I'm not ready to chalk that one up as a win. But on this particular drive, I would say that was a good choice. We are taking this interstate exit here. There is a little bit of road construction detour signs. It looks like our lane is open, so it'll be interesting to see if any of this is interpreted as a problem. Nope, okay, it's getting over in the right lane just fine. Just slow down a hair. Nice and aggressive there. I wouldn't say too aggressive, but that was smooth. It was a good job. All right, we're gonna have a short period here where FSD is gonna join with the interstate. It does not need to merge into traffic. It actually can stay in this lane, but I believe FSD does switch over here. As you can see there. If you notice, in the display shrinks too. That's just kind of one of the behaviors of Navigator and Autopilot not using the widescreen display that FSD uses. Now as we jump off of this exit, I believe it transitions right back to city streets. An interesting scenario where there's this car right back in my blind spot right now. It's appropriately mapping it, and actually it appropriately showed him transitioning. It actually created a duplicate car there for a second. What I was going to show you when he was in that blind spot, how the repeater camera can show it, but now that he's directly behind me, it's not the same thing I was going to show you. We have another car here. So back in the blind spot there, and in the repeater camera, you can see the location of that car. When I look back over my shoulder, that car was right in that blind spot. The part of city streets and Navigator and Autopilot that I really, really love is when lane changes, that visualization of cars that are back there in the blind spot and giving me either the red or the blue. You don't get the red or the blue in city streets like you do in Navigator and Autopilot. Which I hope works its way back into the visualization. All right, just to come up, we do have a merge lane coming up here, and FSD does need to get over to the right, and it's not a lot of traffic here. It usually does a pretty good job here. Turn signal, nice and smooth there. It didn't really have to work very hard to weave into that traffic, but in any case, it didn't do any aggressive braking or acceleration or deceleration. That was good. Okay, this intersection up here, okay, it's starting to think about changing lanes, and it didn't. It chickened out, and I wonder if it chickened out because of that car. See, it's thinking about doing it again. It needs to stay in this lane, preferably. I'd rather it not jump out. Boy, it went through a whole thought process about thinking about doing it, but once this, okay, and now it's yellow and it's stopping, so it looks like we're going to be the first one on the next cycle. There's a good rendering of an individual here, kind of shown in the camera. And the rendering. That little lane jumping was, I'm gonna just flag that because I think it's worth Tesla, you know, having a few snapshots of that, because the disengagement wasn't created. That sometimes you just need to stay in the lane you're in, especially when there's a solid white line there, because these cars right here were rapidly approaching to make that green light. And I think the reason it didn't actually jump over was because it kept seeing cars approaching very quickly from behind. Interesting, you still see that individual back there. So he's back, looks like 2 cars. If I kind of show you in the repeater how small it is, so it's still just barely visible in the repeater, and it's not visible in the rear view camera. So that repeater right there on the left side is what is generating. Oh, looks like it may have transitioned. All right, let me pay attention here again. Left turn here with a line to follow. It's doing a good job staying in that lane. Nice job there. And now we need to get into this left turn lane. Looks like it's going to do that. All right, now this intersection is a little bit, as a driver, I don't know if you can see everything. They're installing some new street lights, and some of them have cover, some of them are not. There's some red lights that are on. This is a protected left turn scenario with a green arrow, but there's a whole lot of lights up there without being on. I'm just trying to think of how Tesla would even start to plan for handling something like this. Obviously waiting on what the right indication is. It also kind of leads into the conversation about, there's the protected green, and it should proceed normally here, about during power outages, how a Tesla would handle complete out stoplights, which should be handled as 4-way stops. All right, continuing, I'm tapping the accelerator a little bit for traffic right on my tail, but I did not disengage it. Needs to get in the right lane. I'm going to go ahead and get in the right lane here. It wasn't putting the blinker on. It's a tight traffic scenario. Okay, so basically it got me all the way to Costco here without getting me into the parking lot in that scenario. But actually, if you look, the mapping wasn't taking me this direction. That's why it wasn't doing it. So that was a little bit of a preference on how I like to enter this parking lot versus how the Tesla was mapping it. 2 interventions, both of them were at the beginning and the end, which is kind of the spots where the Tesla's having problems right now, on these unprotected lefts, and perhaps, you know, some other turns. That last one was a mapping issue, not necessarily a navigation issue with regards to how it handled it. And you could debate whether or not it was a mapping issue. I think there's another exit or entrance over there. I just didn't prefer to use that one. All right, I will set you up on the return. We'll see how it goes. All right, YouTube, we're gonna do a return trip. And since I'm in a parking lot, I figured I would do a little bit of a smart summon experiment while I'm in the car. I don't have high hopes for this. This parking lot is crazy busy right now, but I'm gonna just give it a try because I haven't done it on 9.1 yet. So basically I've got a parking spot and I've got a location. I kind of have to trigger with a forward and reverse with a regular summon, not a smart summon, to kind of get the app to see the car. But anyway, I got it to see the target. I have a target inside of the circle, and we'll just see what happens here. It looks relatively clear, so I'm just gonna hit go to target. My mirrors went in reverse, and just gonna watch it here. All right, so this is in smart summon mode. I'm just in the vehicle, really not changing the behavior of it. It's clear left and right. It's kind of really fishing around it. Okay, it went way too wide. If there was an oncoming car, and okay, it needs to get over to the right a little bit now. Okay, it needs to proceed. I don't know why it's not proceeding, but I'm gonna let it go. There's nobody behind me right now, so I kind of got the effort. Okay, there's a car there. It needs to kind of get over to the right. All right, and I've kind of got a little further to go. It's really waiting. A bunch of cars approaching from the left. I don't know that it's going to be comfortable. Every time a car comes out, it stops. It stopped again, which is okay. These cars are being aggressive drivers, and I'm not. So I'm going to give it one more try, and I'm just going to... That car waited. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and disengage there. I'm creating some confusion. But hey, you know, it got out of the spot, and it kind of did its thing. It was being cautious, as it needs to be in smart summon. I don't know whether we need to attribute any of that to FSD 9.1. I just hadn't done a test with it yet, so I wanted to see what it did. Okay, I'm out of the parking lot. This navigation looks accurate, so I'm going to go ahead and engage and see how it gets me out of here with this construction and all this sort of stuff going on. It almost got teased by that little turn, but the mapping, actually it's not mapped correctly. Look at that. Vision took over there to go against mapping based on the route. That was good. All right, got some cones here. It's got a it's got a red arrow, which it can do with a stop. Nobody's behind me, so I can wait here. Use accelerator gear stalk to continue. Okay, I went ahead and pressed the accelerator there. All right, I had to disengage so it would follow the lane. And it was a little close to a car that was right behind me. It had the blinker on, but that car cut me off to the right by the way the car took that right turn. So that wasn't exactly a safe scenario with the way that car, I had my blinker on, but that car kind of went on the inside and I went on the outside. So that was why that disengagement happened. I'm sure I'm probably going to get a dirty look from that car here in a little bit, but that's the way sometimes these things go. It was right in my blind spot too. If you can see this up here on the left, but the division between this road, this little access road, and the interstate is this little concrete barrier. It's on both sides. On the right side, it seems to be pretty content with mapping it as a red line. Over here on the left, it keeps kind of changing between a purple median, a red barrier, and several different things there. So just something interesting to note. good example of the merge when the lane gets really, really wide. In FSD, it's not jumping into that center of this wider spot right now. It's kind of hugging this left side. Navigator and autopilot still kind of, when that lane widens open, it jumps to the middle. So we just transitioned to Navigator and autopilot just for a few seconds here. But that lane centering is what I was talking about, how I think there's a little bit of a different logic here. So here we're on Navigate and autopilot, and now I see the lane's going to get wider. Let's see what it does. It actually didn't jump over too bad. It kind of squeezed over a little bit. It did center, but it didn't do kind of what it had previously done, where it kind of aggressively jumped into the middle. So that was, maybe Tesla Vision changed that behavior a little bit with Navigator and autopilot. Maybe some others that have Tesla Vision, even without FSD, can verify that. So the aggressiveness of that braking back there, which I thought was completely adequate, did not make this person back here very happy. You know, you can't handle all drivers. Some people like to tail a little bit closer, some people don't. When the Tesla on that ramp slowdown hit the brakes, the guy behind me wasn't expecting the braking it used. Listen, if you get tail-ended, you're rear-ended from the rear, it's the person who's behind you's fault. But at the same time, there's a little bit of defensiveness involved with driving when you know someone behind you is tailing you a little bit. I'm not sure how to build that in, but I think it just goes to show the unnaturalness of the behavior of the car sometimes. I'm just going to show you. He's still kind of really enjoying tailing me a little bit. I'm just going to kind of let it ride and let the car change lanes, but I'm going to guess if I stay here in this left lane, this guy's going to probably jump around me. Okay, he was getting in the left lane, so he jumped over there, so that's why he was behind me. But anyway, it's an interesting conversation to talk about, you know, human interaction with other drivers and what's expected behavior and what's not. Kind of as the safety driver here, I have to kind of make judgment calls sometimes on whether or not I need to press the accelerator just to avoid being that guy on the highway. All right, now similar scenario as our first leg. I got about 4.5 miles on this road. Let's see if it decides to camp out here in the left lane this time, or if it wants to get over to the right and do most of the trip from the right lane. Aggressively slowed all the way down to 48 there for some reason between these two green lights. Now it's getting out of that passing lane. There was nobody behind me at that point, but that's another one of those, I don't know why it slowed down so much, especially over there in the passing lane. Had there been someone right behind me, that wouldn't have been a good behavior. All right, and a nice braking for a yellow transition. It's doing a pretty good job visually seeing all these guidelines out here. While they may be a little bit fuzzy, at least it's got something to navigate by, you know, if it was having to take one of these turns. So that's actually pretty good. They're dotted white, but they're mapped as just little gray lines there. It's indicating it's thinking about a lane change. And there's the signal. Good crossing section if you wanted to look at that, with the light that turned green, but the car still saw some people running the red light, and it did slow down. Those last few cars that crossed were still in the intersection after my light was green, and FSD did slow down. A few barrels in the road here. I don't know if you can see those slightly out in the road. I didn't see, kind of in the road a little bit. Not too far out, but they're out across the line. I'm glad it wasn't hugging the right side too much. I don't know if any of you guys are watching that in the end, if you can see if that trajectory gave any distance to those on the right side. That would be an interesting thing to look at. We've got a situation up here with a city bus, but I believe the bus has already stopped. There might be a bus stop ahead of me that it will stop at. We'll see what it decides to do around this bus, if the bus slows down or not. So this is one of those scenarios where it's got a 0.4 to a right turn. It's definitely going slower than the speed that it's got selected because of this bus. It needs to just kind of wait its turn here rather than try to do some maneuver just because the commanded speed is a little higher than what it's able to do. And so far it's doing that. It's kind of taking the slow lane and not rushing itself to get around there. So I'd say that's a good behavior. And now we're starting to decelerate for a turn that it can't see, but without a blinker. It needs to give a blinker. Still no blinker. There's the blinker. Very late. Car kind of pretty close behind me here. I really don't like that much deceleration without a blinker. Here's another example of some yard trash in the street without being identified at all. And a little bit more here with some branches on the side of the road you can see without being marked. Okay, Well, there we go. So that's the Out and Back to Costco with a little bit of a Smart Summon demo in the middle. Hopefully you enjoyed that. I'd say in general, you know, there are a handful of disengagements, but both of them were on the ends of the trip. You know, the unprotected left getting out of the neighborhood, that one, you know, the red light, or the light turning right out of Costco with the car kind of up behind me. But once I got on the interstate or on the straight and narrows, you know, everything was kind of legit. It worked good. And I think that's generally been my experience. I know a lot of my videos are kind of testing the things that I'm trying to learn about and figure out what the car's doing. But in general, the out and back sort of stuff, once you get on the road, is pretty good. It's those little corner cases or, you know, the more difficult scenarios of getting on the road. All right, leave some comments below. Let me know what you think. Have a great day.